Hi everyone, my name is Lubna, and in today's lesson I'll be showing you how to use proper vocabulary in your IELTS Writing Task 2 essay. Before I begin, I'd like to clear up any misconceptions of the type of vocabulary you should be using in your writing. So I know a lot of people tend to download word lists or vocabulary lists belonging to the GRE, SATs, and even the GMAT exams. Those are way too advanced, and actually they're not conducive or even necessary for writing. Those types of lists are used to measure verbal aptitude and not how well you can express your ideas or thoughts in an essay. So my advice to you is to focus on vocabulary lists catered to or made for IELTS. All right, so let's get back to the objective of today's lesson. What are lexical resources and why are they so important? Well, lexical resources are just formal words and phrases used to express your ideas. And notice how I emphasize on formal. It's important to understand that IELTS essays are not like your typical college or university essays, but they have a more direct approach. They're to the point and most of the times quite boring. Believe it or not, that's what the examiners are looking for. So let's take a quick look at what's in formal language in comparison to formal. Over here in the chart, you can see some frequent used words or phrases that people like to use instead of formal. So, for example, need or ask for can become request. Important, which is a very common word that everybody uses. As a formal way of using it, significant. And so a transitional word that is commonly used as well can be used as a consequence or consequently. The next question is why lexical resources are so... Well, if you take a look at an IELTS Task 2 writing descriptor, there are 4 criteria that the examiner is going to base your score on. And the third one is labeled lexical resources, or in short, LR. As I mentioned in one of my previous lessons, each section is worth 25% of your band score. So vocabulary is given the same weight of the task response, being coherent and cohesive, as well as grammar and punctuation. So basically our aim right now is to get at least a band 7 and above. So let's take a quick look at some of the descriptors. Over here, it says, uses a sufficient range of vocabulary to allow some flexibility and precision. That's basically synonyms. Another descriptor, uses less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocation. That's quite obvious, collocations. And the last one, may produce occasional errors in word choice, spelling, and or word formation. Word formation is basically the way you use your verbs, your nouns, your adjectives and adverbs, and also the word order in a sentence. So now that we know what lexical resources are and why they are so important, it's time that we look at the 3 different forms of lexical resources that you should use while writing your essay. Now, the first one being change the word order and the word form. This is a widely used this is widely used in the introduction paragraph where you have to paraphrase the topic or background of the topic. The word form is when you change nouns to adjectives, verbs to adverbs, or vice versa. I'll be explaining these techniques later on in the lesson in more details. The second one, using synonyms. Basically different words, but with the same meaning. We use synonyms to avoid repetition in our essay, and examiners are always looking for a wide range of vocabulary, especially if your aim is to get a band 7 or more. And last but not least, collocations. Collocations are a great way of enhancing your essay, and the trick is knowing how to use them properly in your essay. So there are many collocations related to IELTS topics, and those can be found easily online. All right, let's begin with the first option of lexical resources, changing word order and word formation. As you can see here, I took an excerpt from a previous writing topic to show you how exactly you can apply this method. So the example states, in a number of countries, some people think it is necessary to spend large sums of money on constructing new railway lines. Now let's take a look at the reconstructed version. The first thing I did was to see if I could change the word order of the sentence itself, and I did that by moving some people in a number of countries think. Even though I'm using the same words throughout the sentence, it would not be considered as copying. Another change I made was the word formation of spend, which was originally in the present simple form, and then I changed it into spending, into present continuous. Also on constructing, which is a verb, I made it into a noun to the construction. And new, an adjective, I also converted that to newly. Lastly, necessary. It's an adjective, and I made it into necessity, which is a noun. Okay, so let's move on to option 2, synonyms. Different words with the same meaning. So for example, these are some common synonyms that you see in a lot of IELTS topics, or even the essays themselves. People or shoppers, you can actually make them into consumers. Teachers, lecturers can become educators. Buy or spend, purchase. Spending, that's actually commonly used as well, quite frequent. That can be expenditures. Now, note, sometimes you won't be able to avoid repeating the same word twice throughout the essay, so try to avoid repetition in the same paragraph, at least. I mean, that's the least you can do, is just try not to repeat the same word twice. Now let's take a look at option number 3, using collocations. Like I mentioned before, collocations are a great way to enhance your writing, and if you study several collocations by the topic, you have a greater chance of attaining a higher band score. Let's take a look at the most common types of collocations. So these are the 4 that I'm going to be choosing: adverb and plus an adjective. As an example, the government is fully aware of the implications. So see how I underlined fully aware? That's a good adverb, adjective collocation. Second one, adjective and noun collocation. Regular exercise along with a healthy diet can prevent childhood obesity. So we have 2 collocations here. Regular being an adjective and exercise being a noun. Healthy, diet, those are great collocations too. Healthy being an adjective and diet being a noun. The third type of collocation is the noun-noun collocation. Recently, communications technology has significantly affected how business is. Okay, these are also just little excerpts of parts of a sentence, just to give you a variety of selections that I chose from. So communications technology, communications being a noun and technology being a noun. The last one I chose is the verb-noun collocation. Managers should possess the skills to give presentations. So give, verb, and presentations noun. Now, I'd like you to take a look at collocations in a sentence. All right? So collocations used to enhance your writing. Here we go. First example. Others believe that funds should be spent on improving existing public transport. So with the collocations, others strongly believe that allotted funds should be spent freely on improving existing public transport. So if you notice over here, I added strongly, an adverb to the verb, and then allotted funds made it into a verb noun, and spent freely, a verb, spent, and freely adverb. Okay. All right, before I conclude the lesson, I'd like to bring your attention to what type of language is not permissible or acceptable in an IELTS essay. So, contractions. Definitely not. Do not use contractions whatsoever, whether in your letter or even in your essay. For example, it's, there, can't, wouldn't, no contractions whatsoever. Second, abbreviations. People tend to sometimes use abbreviations because they're in such a rush when they're writing. I've read a lot of essays actually. It's something that you can't really avoid sometimes, but if you really focus, you can get over it. So like street, for example, write down the actual name of the street, the full street number. That's another one that's commonly seen in a lot of essays. and the abbreviation of and. Please do not use and whatsoever in this type of form. Phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs, they're great for the speaking, but not so great for the writing. They're very informal. So let's just take a look at some of the examples. Put up with, you can, instead of saying that, you can just use tolerate. Put off, you can use postpone instead. Make up for, definitely use compensate. Now the last type of informal language are idioms and expressions. I know a lot of instructors say, no, idioms are great. I mean, if you try to incorporate them in your essay writing, they're going to make your writing more interesting. Don't do it. If you don't know how to properly use the idioms in your essays, it can actually change the entire meaning, and you don't want to take that chance. So this is like another example of some types of idioms and expressions. It costs an arm and a leg instead of saying that it's expensive. Can move mountains, for example. That's also a very common expression that people use. Okay, everyone. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more tutorials I will be posting on our page.